Welcome to the ZoomInfo Labs podcast. I'm Ben Salzman.
And I'm Millie Beetham.
Today, we're joined by the hilarious and insightful Corporate Natalie, who's built a massive following online by poking fun at the quirks of corporate culture.
Natalie's obviously got a knack for making work culture relatable, from her TikToks to teaming up with Corporate Bro on their podcast Demoted. Her insights really click with professionals everywhere, including us, so we were super excited to have her on the show.
We sat down with her to talk about how she got started, corporate satire, what big brands can learn from her, and so much more. Let's get into it. Welcome to the ZoomInfo Labs podcast. Today we have a very special guest. I could not be more excited to chat with Corporate Natalie. Corporate Natalie, welcome to the show. How are you?
Ben, thank you for having me. I'm great. It's, 4 p.m. on a Thursday. My week's almost over. I'm excited.
Nice. We'll call it a win. Well, Millie and I are so excited to chat with you. And for the poor souls who don't know you already or don't follow you, give the once over on who Corporate Natalie is.
Yes. Corporate Natalie is a social media persona that was born in COVID, when we were all kind of facing this new normal reality of work from home. And I was actually working in consulting at the time, traveling across the country. And when the world stopped, so did my travel and dreams of becoming partner at the firm. And I took to TikTok to poke fun at these, partners in their robes, not knowing how to adjust to this new setting. Quickly changed my name to Corporate Natalie after some videos took off. And I currently create content across TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Started a podcast with Ross, Corporate Bro, for any of you sales savages listening. And Ben and Millie were so generous as to allow us to record in the ZoomInfo Labs space, which has been amazing. So it's really fun. If you check me out on my channel, it's hard to explain. I play a bunch of different characters. I sometimes play my mom, I play the friend who, and I just do kind of satirical bits.
Yeah. And it is some of the funniest content out there. I mean this seriously. Like, I will sometimes wake up to, especially now that folks know that you're in our studio, to like 3 or 4 people before I wake up ping me about your stuff, and then there's like maybe a couple slacks about like everything else. So
oh my gosh.
If you don't follow already, to use listeners out there, you should. Kudos to you. It's truly some of the funniest content, Natalie, that's anywhere. So tell us a little bit about your background and your upbringing and sort of like pre-corporate Natalie. How did you become you?
Yes. I like to say I was always an extremely hard worker, very type A. Like, I would cry in class if I didn't get an A, like that kind of girl. I worked really hard. I took the ACT 9 times, like a school psycho. They told me, like, stop, like, you're not going to change your score. I'm like, I can do it. I can get the 34. And I did. And I was always very entrepreneurial. Like, I, in college, learned how to make a little choker necklace and started a jewelry company. And of course, like, couldn't just like sell on my campus, had to get reps at 10 different universities across the country and like be just peddling this bohemian style jewelry across literally the country. And then I sold the trademark to that business when I graduated, but always just had that like kind of entrepreneurial spirit. Never thought that it would take form in content, because I never viewed content creation as an entrepreneurial endeavor. I viewed it as like silly little TikToks and dances, and like, that's beneath me. I have a real corporate job, but now seeing just how much opportunity exists and how it really is a business endeavor, and you can grow it however you want, and like however much effort and energy you put in is sort of the output you get out. And it's been really fun. But I never, if you asked me in college, like, do you want to be a content creator? I would have said absolutely not. Like, what? No, that's embarrassing. It was never on my radar.
Nice. And now, of course, that's like, I think like the most wanted job if you ask folks like in high school, right?
Yes.
It's like
YouTuber,
content creator, then like professional athlete, or what's next?
Totally. Very realistic. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. And Millie, I just love that makes 2 of you who would cry to not get the 34 in the ACT. So
100%. Well, so much so that I just decided not to take it so I couldn't fail.
No, that's the best way to go about it. It's like golf. Like, I don't start golf because I'm bad. I refuse to do that learning curve.
So like you become a content creator and all of a sudden you have to like know how to use social media. You have to like be a social media marketer. Like, where did that knowledge come from for you? Like, Did you pick it up as you went along? Did you learn from other content creators? Did you take a class? Like, did you take a class 9 times trying to get 100%? Like, where did that come from?
No, it's a great question. And I tell a lot of like early stage companies, they're like, we want to start on social media. We want to start a channel for our page. And it's like, okay, do you use TikTok? And they're like, no, I don't use TikTok. I don't have that app, like whatever. Okay, well, you need to use the apps and like become fluent in that language, because every platform has a different language and currency. And it's like, if you're not a user, you will fail at being a creator. So first is like using, and I still to this day say like I'm totally addicted to TikTok, like in a bad way. I am like constantly scrolling. I know every trend, I know every sound. I like will view from the lens of how can I make that like a corporate spin on like a trending sound. So I'm definitely a user of the apps. I think I was also thankful to have friends in the industry from the creator side. One of my friends, Victoria Garrick, has been doing this since college. And so when you start off, you're like, what rates do I charge? How do I monetize this? Like that was all very foreign to me. And that was definitely trial and error, I think on both sides, both like which content works, let's test it. Oh, that totally failed. People hated that. Let's not do that ever again. Even with brands and rates too, it's like, okay, they're really being accepting of my rate pretty quickly. Like that's normal. I feel like this should be more of a negotiation, so let's bump that up a bit. So just learning and having the confidence to fail too. I think if you're a company on a social page and you have all these accolades and you're used to like having the big commercial spot and just doing things big and grandiose and correctly for like the traditional marketing sense, it's really hard to like take some time on a short form video, it fails, no one sees it, and you're like, well, that was a waste of time, we can never do that again. It's like, of course it will fail, And so for me, it was always my side thing, and I had my full-time job, and this was just something fun I did, and if it failed, who cares, So you have to kind of approach social media that way, because you're not going to win 100% of the time.
How has that changed for you? Like, is it different now, or do you still like have that sort of laissez-faire attitude about it?
So different platforms, I approach it like uniquely. I think for TikTok, I'm more willing to take those risks because there's just a chance that it won't even be served up to your followers. I think Instagram, I value a little higher now. I have almost 1 million followers, which is exciting. I have a bigger audience, a more like invested audience. I'll do less experimentation on that platform. But it's like, I think LinkedIn is a good example of I'm trying video format. They just created a video feed. Like, okay, that's working. Let's lean in there. And it's constant reevaluation. Same with like series that I create on my channel is like Gen Z feedback. Okay, people love this. I got to do one a week. Like, let's give the people what they want. And so it changes every day, but it's definitely like, it's good to check in. If I kept doing work from home videos of me in my dimly lit San Francisco apartment and never evolved into the mom character, the friend character, like my channel wouldn't grow as it is.
For the record, we're fine with Gen Z feedback all day. Like every time one of those comes up.
You're in. Okay, good.
Yeah. To that point about sort of like fighting through, what was maybe the lowest point at the beginning where you're like, all right, this is too hard. I don't want to put myself out there. It's hard. Or maybe like the moment when you're like, whoa, like, is this actually happening?
Yeah. So lowest point, and it's like, it's not really a point. It was just more of a feeling. I was doing content creation, basically what felt like full time, and also had a very demanding full-time job. I was working at a cybersecurity company at the time. And it just like, I think we really toss around this word burnout a lot. And I think firsthand, that was a moment of, I've done this for almost a full year, both full time. I am burnt out. Like I am just so unhealthy. I am struggling to get up in the morning. I'm staying up late. I have my relationships with my family and friends are crumbling. Like everything is just felt like it was falling apart. I had no control of the narrative anymore of my life. And I think that was like a low point of, okay, I need to either choose to do this, like choose one. And I ended up choosing full-time content creation. It was the best decision I ever made. And I also just learned the value of hard work, and I wouldn't trade that time. I'm so happy that I learned that. I think a fulfilling moment, like a very, I can't believe this is happening moment, is I got asked to like act in a like one woman commercial series for this company, Paycom. And I had never been on set before. Like a production setting was so new to me. I've just been in my bedroom with my phone. And I show up and there's a crew of 60 people and it's just me on like on stage. And it's like they rebuilt my room. So my first videos, I was in this bedroom, this like very small room. And I showed the set, and it's my bedroom recreated, my same fixture. Like, and they had asked me all these questions, like, "And where's your bureau from?" What I'm like, okay, whatever. This is so annoying. What are they doing? Got the exact mock-up of my room, like to the like rounders on my makeup desk, like everything that was in frame that they could observe their art department. And it was a 3-day shoot, and it was just like, I was very emotional when I left. I was like crying when we wrapped. I was just so full of like, I was so thankful, and really had a moment of like, I love this. This is fulfilling and just beyond anything I could have ever expected. And it was really, really fun.
One of the things, Natalie, when I first started to take in your content, I found myself being like, wow, she's so right about that. But how does she know that? Like, she just, you're a young person. You've talked about like you're, 27 or something. How do you know all this stuff? It feels like you're wise beyond your years. Like, how do you know so much about work culture and, things that happen in the office when you've been in it for only a few years now? And I guess not even in it anymore, technically.
No, totally. And I always say like the day my content's not relevant, like just unfollow me, because I've failed you as a follower. I think a few things. One, working at Deloitte, I always say at a big four company, it's like 5 years into one. Like I was working like the classic 85-hour a week grind, the travel, like everything you could have ever, like just the hierarchy, the partner telling you to, it was a lot in one, and it was very corporate, I think. And that was like my foray into the working world in its entirety. And then I was able to also see kind of more of a tech company setting at Palo Alto Networks. And so I got a little bit of that before leaving full time. And then of course, like my followers and what I do every day, like it informs the content. I hear your stories. We have a Dear Demoted segment on Demoted. Like I'm constantly interfacing in the comments and with my community, and I'm hearing what's happening. And then I go to these conferences myself, and I speak, and I see everyone and see the awkward interactions. And so, I mean, I like to say I'm involved in some capacity, but I'm very observant. I've always been like, I'm a total people pleaser, that I always want to know like what motivates everyone. And I think that helps me like build these characters when I do the videos.
When was like the first moment where you're interacting with a business leader or like someone famous in the business world where you realize like, wow, like I actually really know my stuff compared to these people? And then maybe the same thing in like the acting world. It sounds like that commercial set was like that moment for you, but like maybe interacting with people in the entertainment world when you're like, oh, I'm like as funny as all these people. Like, can you talk us through those moments, both in business and in comedy?
So for the business leaders, it's so funny you asked that, because I was just on a panel at Stanford GSB. It was a Harvard Stanford panel. And I also flew to Harvard to speak at Harvard Business School. And I'm on these panels quite frequently where I'm sitting there like, I'm just the personality hire. This is hilarious. Why am I here? Like, the people on the panel are like, we have an investor in TikTok. We have like the head of LinkedIn, like just this insane lineup of individuals. And I usually like my shtick is like, I'm not sure why I'm here, like self-deprecating. But I think recently at this panel in particular at Stanford, I was like, you know what? I have valuable insights to bring from a creator perspective. Like I can kind of hang with this crowd. And I, for the first time, honestly, ever in my speaking career, I wasn't self-deprecating. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to sit here and I'll, of course, crack a few jokes, but like, I deserve to be here. So that was very exciting. My dad actually came to that talk at Stanford. That was fun. And then acting kind of separately, I recently was asked to act in a show in LA with a cast of people who are so far beyond anyone I'd ever think I could be exposed to. Like there are ex-SNL cast members, like really famous reality stars, pop stars who you probably listen to their music every day. And then me, like, what the hell am I doing there? And so and the whole show was improv, and we just wrapped a few weeks ago. But it was just so exciting to literally be in that room with those individuals. I still can't believe it. So that's a moment that'll stick with me forever.
That's awesome. I love it. Let's talk about some of your followers. So you mentioned you have almost 1 million followers on Instagram. You have a ton on TikTok. And I want to make sure before we break, we got to talk about this TikTok ban. Like you don't have to comment on China-US relations, but I'm wondering how that will affect like how you're thinking about that news. But let's talk about some of these followers. When I look at my mutual followers, first of all, it's a ton of people outside of tech and outside of like what I traditionally think of as like my world, right? Just like people from all over the place, multiple countries, like multiple industries. You also have a ton of famous followers, like my favorite Peloton instructor, some people related to the NFL, other big comedians. Like, talk to us a little bit about like what that feels like when you see someone in your follows or your follower, list where you're like, oh my God, that person's following me.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes I don't even see it, and like someone will say to me like, did you know this person's following you? And I'll like have to look and see. I don't know if Instagram has like a verified only like functionality. I'm not sure like how I'm supposed to see these things. I do have moments where mostly the biggest thing that happens to me is my roommates and I will be watching a reality show like Love is Blind, The Ultimatum, Bachelor, anything, and we'll go look at their Instagrams, and like most of the time those people are following me because they come from like a sales background or something, and it's always it's funny because like I'll have to press follow back for these people who like we're currently idolizing seeing on TV, like oh my God, these are like they're famous, and they're just people who had regular jobs who took 6 months off to film a show, like so it's funny, but that often happens.
Yeah, I love it. Let's switching gears a little bit to how you monetize all of this and how you make money. Corporate Natalie, if you dig in on the web, is obviously like a business now. It's not just you making videos. You're clearly like turned it into something that you can probably run forever. Talk to us a little bit about how the business works, how you think about Corporate Natalie Corporation, if you will.
Yeah, so I'll speak to the brand deal process, and then we can kind of get into like any specific questions of like why should companies invest in this, whatever. But for me, it's like brand deals happen. You get reached out to by a company wanting you to promote their product in some capacity on your channels. The goal is to tap into that following that you have. And so they'll reach out, we'll have a creative call, we'll get into scripting. I'll basically script an entire video, get that approved by their legal department, film, edit, post, invoice, send analytics of how it went, and hopefully re-up the contract and do it all over again. This is like the bread and butter of how I monetize. There's also like affiliate links of what outfit were you wearing in that video, and I get 10% commission on every outfit sold. There's, speaking engagements. I also have a company that I founded for virtual assistants for influencers. That's another way of monetizing. I just started a newsletter. We have the podcast. Like, it's exciting to have this diversification. I think when I first started, it was all brand deals. But I get asked a lot, like, why would companies go to you and pay you this large sum to promote their product? And I think it's like a very fair question. And I always would see influencers be like, get ready with me with my new product. And like, it's just like, it's an ad. It's like, what do people engage with this? Do they even like it? And I think there are a few like interesting stats, like 85% of Gen Z said that social media influences their buying decisions. Similarly, like another stat, an ESPN primetime slot gets like 1 to 5 million views on a commercial, which like seems like an insane amount. If I make a video to my followers, which totals over 1 million people, you can get what's called like an ad code and boost that video to 5 million people in a day. Like they'll be able to see that video, and they'll not only be just like any random untargeted individual watching that show at that time. It's a targeted individual who follows me, respects me, has seen my face, knows my content. And so you wonder why, like, is this a good investment? But you're getting 900,000 people on Instagram who follow me, love me, support me, want to see the products I'm promoting. It does start to make sense, and it starts to add up as that investment. Instead of like spending $500,000 on a commercial, you don't know who's going to see it. Is it going to really convert? It's hard to measure. And I think it does have power there. And I've seen it in the analytics on my posts, of like how many link clicks I get on an outfit, And so it does it does pay off, I think, with influencer marketing. And there's a lot of
Oh,
skeptics.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and one day that all of Gen Z will be the CEOs and CMOs of the corporate world. So at some point, this will be core to their entire social media marketing strategy, or maybe just their marketing strategy, right?
Totally. And that's a whole nother edge of the sword is like these leaders in business will soon be people who are making TikToks literally as you're saying. And it's like your personal brand as a business leader will matter so much more than really what you're doing. It's like it's almost like your brand matters more than what you're giving to the company. And so we talked about that with even Henry and doing like doing a live show with him. It's like that would be so cool to get him on stage with us and get those social clips, and that would be like really beneficial for his brand. I think it's interesting to see those things.
Do you have like a core tidbit of advice that you tell CEOs today in terms of how they should be thinking about brand and social media?
Well, so it depends on the product. I think it's different for if you're a B2B, company or B2C. I think if you're in the beauty industry, B2C, there's a lot of conversion that you see on TikTok. Beauty has just done it far and away the best. They're able to push a product so easily by tapping in their core influencers. There's like the Sephora squad that just does wonders for them. I think it's harder in a B2B sense because for TikTok specifically, the user has a really short attention span. They don't want to learn. And sometimes when the product's complex or hard to explain, TikTok's maybe the wrong strategy for B2B. And I don't know what your audience is of who's listening to this, but I think you have to figure out where you want to place influencer activations. I think LinkedIn is starting to become a really viable option for B2B companies to promote through short form video their products, whether it's come to our office and show even like our culture of like working at ZoomInfo, like let's be in the office doing an office tour. And that's like a really cool brand awareness play. If the product's too complex, there are different avenues you can go about to create either your company brand or the brand of your actual product. And it's just like, how do you want to go about that in the way that makes the most sense?
Yeah. Let's talk about TikTok for a second. And again, you're not required to comment on global politics if you don't want to, but how does this potential ban of TikTok, I assume it's all bad news for you. There's no upside in it for you, but what do you think of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, Ross and I have talked about it a little bit. I don't know if it was on the podcast or before we started rolling, but I think TikTok is it can be really positive. It can also be a very dark place for cancel culture and all these things. I'm also admitted earlier in this call, I'm fully addicted as a user. And so I would love to get some time back and half my income is on this platform. And I just learned that TikTok doesn't really need the US. 10% of their users are US based. It seems bigger. The US needs TikTok. It's so core to our everyday. I would be okay with a ban. I know that's crazy, but it is really addicting. I fear every younger generation I interface with is it's so core to their day to day, just being on the app. That I fear for my kids and moving forward. I don't know. It's just if it keeps becoming this really addictive spiral of you have this perfectly curated page for you. All social media is like that, but I don't know. I think it might be good for productivity. Is that crazy?
So you've seen so much. I mean, you and I were chatting a little bit about deep fakes and creating avatars and how AI is going to play into content down the line. And then of course there's Sora and some of the things OpenAI has done. What's your sense for how AI will impact this world of content creation and impact your world longer term?
So yes, I think the creator economy, kind of supply chain and production chain, is going to change very drastically. Even with podcast editing, it's so easy to use AI currently to edit and face tracking and really enhance that process. And I think we should be leaning into that and we should make that process easier. I would love a world where I could plug in just a raw video that I take of myself and it gives me how I would quick cut Zoom and edit. And I think we're close to getting there, honestly. And I welcome that with open arms. I think I was asked on a panel, the more of the deep fake stuff, would you be okay with, an AI version of you. We've even talked about this, Ben, like, doing a video or joining a call or doing a training. And I kind of flipped it back and I was like, would you be comfortable with an AI version of you leading a Zoom call with your team or like in your work? Would you be comfortable like the AI Ben and Millie are hosting me right now on this podcast? Like, I don't think I would be at current state. And so I think the same with my channels right now. Like, I'm not quite comfortable with it. And it's maybe just because I don't know enough about it, but I don't think it's there fully. And I'm not going to be a first mover in that yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what's interesting for you is that it is the authenticity of the human that makes it different. Whereas there's a lot of stuff where it's like, you just need to create a video that's something like this. But when it's like personality driven, feels like you have a lot more insurance. Like people want to know it's the human Corporate Natalie that did this, not just someone who looks like her or whatever. It's actually about it being you, right?
Totally. And there's a lot of movement in the space on like chat bots, like in your Instagram DMs, responding to people, creating like conversations with your followers. Because I can't talk with 900,000 people every day. That's impossible. But could the AI version of me do that? And I think similarly, it's like they want to feel like they're talking to me and the real person. You build this like parasocial relationship with these creators you follow. I have it with a ton of creators where I literally think we're friends and we're not. Like sadly, they don't know who I am. And so it's just interesting. It's like I wouldn't trust the tech right now to be able to make the witty comment that I would make in DM or like really carry my philosophy and my voice.
I feel like that's the dichotomy sort of between like the entrepreneur versus the actor. Like you're like acting, but you're running a business. And so there'd be great places where AI could be like so efficient for you as the business owner, but as the actor, like the authenticity, like your real self, like that's gotta be so important over the long term. But on that note, Nat, thinking about like long term, like what does Corporate Natalie look like 15 years from now? Like, is there a plan? Are you just like sort of letting it flow? Or do you kind of see the 5, 10, 15 years sort of down the line plan for the brand and for the organization?
Yeah, I mean, so I would hope when I'm, in 10 years, if I have kids or whatever that looks like I probably won't be able to make a video every day as I do now. It's pretty draining. I have like full film days where I make sure I have something through the weekend to post every single day. So I would like to get a little bit more behind the camera. I think two goals that would be exciting for me are starting a clothing line for workwear for women. And secondly, doing like CEO.
I'd wear it.
You'd buy. Okay. I have my first customer.
I'd totally wear it. 100%.
So clothing line would be very exciting. And then starting like a CEO, CMO, like branding workshop or like working one-on-one with big, leaders in business to help them grow their following, would be exciting. So I think I just started a newsletter. Like hopefully there will be ways that the Corporate Natalie brand can live on without me. I do think my page is sort of like a meme account in a way. Like they're not really expecting updates on my personal life. They just kind of want the bits. So finding a way to lean into that kind of meme culture would be the dream.
Yeah, and speaking of which, when you mentioned it a little bit, but it must be weird for people to come up to you like they know you. Like even me, like I try to like make sure I don't ask you too many wild questions, but like I see, like I know what she did last night. I know about her trip to Japan. Like people must come up to you all the time and talk to you like they know you, right? Like what's that like to just know that you personally affect so many people? And they must stop you on the street, right? Like tell us a little bit about what that's like in San Francisco.
Well, it's such an honor anytime I get recognized, of course. And like, I love meeting everyone out in the wild. It's so fun. So I would never, diminish that. It's a very special moment every time. This morning, for example, I saw this girl at Starbucks and she was like, oh my God, it's you. I'm like, hi. Oh my God. Yeah, I do the videos, whatever. Same thing. She's like, I'm like, do you live here? She's like, yeah, I just moved from Vegas. I just moved from Las Vegas to the marina. I'm like, wait, what? She's like, oh my God, I don't know why I'm saying that. I feel like we're friends. I literally feel like we're friends and that you would know that about me. Like, oh my God. It was so funny. It was like such a hilarious, I was cracking up. We were dying laughing. She's like, I don't know why the fuck I just said that.
That's amazing.
Great.
That's amazing. And do you feel like pressure from people? Like you owe them more content, or like, does that ever like feel like you'll let, like if you didn't post for a week, people would stop you on the street and be like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Like
Yeah, I don't
you set
know.
an expectation.
Knocking at her door like, hello, like sign of life.
Yeah, no, literally. I more feel pressure in like in-person interactions where if I'm just like coming back from workout class, it's early morning, like I'm not always on, like I am a real like person. I do need like that recharge time. And sometimes I fear that like if I'm not funny and on and hilarious and smiling, like that would hurt my brand image and they would, it just wouldn't be good for me. And so I am very intentional about like being so smiley. And I do think that gets a little tiring sometimes, but that's okay.
Yeah. Oh my God. It must be a lot. Like I can only imagine people come up to you constantly. Maybe related to that, like what's the most emotional story that you've ever heard of the way that your content affected someone, either getting them through a tough time, or I'm sure you get some of that too. Like talk us through maybe a time where you were really touched by a follower's story around how you help them.
I mean, I've heard this a couple of times, but every time it really does touch me of like you helped me in one of the darkest times, COVID. I think it really was. We underestimate like how dark and sad and scary it was for a lot of individuals. And I've had just very genuine conversations with people of like, you brought me that joy and that happiness in a time when I had none of that. And so I've been brought to tears a couple of times with people where I feel very like, that's incredible that I could like bring you happiness in a dark time. So very, very touching anytime I hear those stories.
Yeah. So Natalie, this is our sort of go-to question we ask everyone. Who's the smartest person you ever, two-part question. Who's the smartest person you ever met and why were the smartest person? And what did you learn that impacted you going forward?
And you can't say Ross.
I would never say Ross. Come on. What? I would say the Rare Beauty CMO, Katie Welch. I got to meet her through like a Rare Beauty event, and she's like one of my closest mentors. She just like kind of is the embodiment of like women can have it all. Like you can be feminine and funny and pretty and intelligent and uplifting to other women. And it's really hard to find that balance. And I think she has struck that so eloquently and beautifully. And I look up to the work she does every day. And so I'm lucky to be able to like text her and talk to her and just have access to her. She's a great person.
That's awesome. And I think it's important to note that I think that a lot of women feel that way about you, and that you sort of like, even though it's not a big explicit part of your content, it feels like you are fighting for women and lifting them up. I know my wife, shout out to Amanda, frequently is like, oh my God, she just inspires me. So I think you inspire a lot of people, and obviously a lot of your followers are women. So kudos.
Here, here.
Oh my gosh, I'm honored. Thank you. This made my day. I'm gonna have to cut that social clip just for my personal viewing.
Well, you got it. Natalie, we can't thank you enough for coming on the ZoomInfo Labs podcast. We love having you as part of our creator program in the ZI Labs studio, and you're just a great person, and you really do make me laugh every single day. So thank you for coming on, and thank you for all you do to make us laugh every day. Hopefully everyone already follows you, but if they don't, where can they find you on social?
Yes, Corporate Natalie across channels, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. I would love your follow. That would mean the world.
Awesome. You're the best. We really appreciate you coming on. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the ZoomInfo Labs podcast.
For more from ZoomInfo Labs, subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me and Ben on LinkedIn and visit zoominfo.com/labs to get in touch.